Why would we need a church website designer? I can do it myself. Why would I want to hire someone else to do it? It's a waste of money. Or is it? Welcome to the Church Media Guys show. My name is Justin, and if we haven't met, I'm one half of Church Training Academy. Dave's the other half, but he won't be here today. And if you've never heard of Church Training Academy, we show you and other churches how to use and exploit technology to take the gospel into your city, the community, the world. I want to introduce you guys to Adam Mclaughlin. He's been on the show before. Adam, say hello to the wonderful world of the internet.
What up, y'all? It's great to be here, Justin. Thank you for having me.
Dude, I appreciate you being here. By the way, you're not in a typical office right now. Tell for anyone that hasn't met you, what's going on here?
Well, you know, I'm a little bit disappointed because if I was Dave, I would have all that Star Wars stuff back there. But I don't. I am in my mobile office, a.k.a. my vehicle, because since August, my wife and I have been traveling full-time in our trailer around Canada and the U.S., By the way, born and raised in Canada, got to shout that out there. And so, yeah, we've been traveling. So right now I am getting out of the trailer a little so I can sit in the office and, well, sit in the vehicle and have a few minutes of quiet so we can hang out for this broadcast.
Adam, thanks for being here today. And by the way, Adam was so stoked to be on the show with me. He didn't even ask what we're talking about. We literally just hopped on a call about 5 minutes ago before we hit live. And he said, by the way, what are we talking about? And I should have said something like robot toasters. By the way, Adam, are toasters, do you consider them robots?
I don't consider toasters robots because they don't have voice boxes that, you know what I mean? That's kind of like, you know, base level essential for a robot for me. But, you know, today, I don't know what we're talking about. And, you know, it's kind of my life motto is I really don't know what I'm talking about. So, hey, here we go.
Well, that's okay because I'm here because you're here because I want to bounce ideas off of you. It's the Church Media Guys
Bounce
show.
Away.
We have the Justin Nava show we're going to talk about where it is just me, but I want to make sure the Church Media Guys show, and Dave wants to make sure too, that it is kind of a partnership. It is a dialogue that we get to have and the live stream gets to follow along with. So Pete, thanks for being here in the YouTube. Shout out to Pete. He's here almost every week. We're going to get into the main topic of the church website designers. Do we need them? How much do they cost? Are they a waste of money? All those good questions and more. But first, I want to give you a pro tip this week.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Today's pro tip is very simple, and it's one action step. I'm not going to give you a tool that you have to learn. I'm not going to give you a platitude that's going to make you feel better. I'm going to get right down and dirty and be super blunt with you. Are you ready for this? Pro tip. You need to go into your podcast app, your favorite podcast app, iTunes, Overcast, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, I think Dave likes, Google Play. Go in there right now and search for yours truly, Justin Nava. There is a new podcast in the podcast store, wherever your favorite podcast is available, called The Justin Nava Show. I am being super blunt here. If you're not listening to the show, you're missing out, okay? Because we have the Church Media Guys show where me and Dave talk a lot about the technical stuff, a lot about the things that you can do to improve your website, your live stream, your social media. On the Justin Nava show, we're talking more about the principles behind what makes ministry great, okay? Yes, God is the power behind ministry, but he uses you and he uses the principles that we ingrain here at Church Training Academy to get ministry done better. So if you want to learn more about the principles that goes behind running a great ministry, if you want to learn about the tactics that you can use that back up those principles and put them into action, go to your favorite podcast app, download, go subscribe and watch the Justin Nava show, where I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to have a great ministry. And we're going to talk a lot about church communications too, a lot more marketing stuff. We're going to be doing reviews. We're going to be showing clips, what's going on, the other people going on in the church comm space, like Adam Mclaughlin. Say hello, Adam.
What up?
We're going to be talking about Adam, not behind his back, but we're going to be showing you the great things that he's doing and kind of doing a roundup that we can do. So, again, this is it. Your pro tip, one action step. Go to your podcast app, find the Justin Nava Show, hit subscribe, watch, listen, and leave a review, because we will be giving away random bonuses, too, for whoever leaves a review on the Justin Nava Show, good or bad. But, you know, if you like it, leave a review. That's it. Go do it right now. What are you still doing here? Podcast app, Justin Nava Show. Subscribe.
And now, for our
So today I wanted to take a moment and talk about church website designers. This is specifically people that you bring on, an outside contractor, an outside person, to come in and make a website for you. Now, we're going to talk about all the different benefits and cons, but to help me with this conversation, because I don't want to just preach at you from the pulpit, I want to introduce, again, Adam Mclaughlin. Adam, welcome to the Church Media Guys Show.
What up, Justin? Thank you for having me. I loved earlier how you said that it's going to be a great show because Dave's not here.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
We're going to have to go back and find that clip, and that is going to be my new favorite GIF. Also, is it GIF or GIF? This is what I need to know.
It is totally GIF. If you know what you're talking about, it's GIF.
Okay. If the guy invented it calls it GIF, it's like calling your favorite soda Coca-Cola instead of Coca-Cola. Let the guy who invented it tell you how to say it. Just throwing it out there.
You want to talk about guys inventing things and not innovating on top of that? No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay, so Renee, real quick, sidebar. Renee in the chat says Java with just Justin Nava. Is that too much?
Yeah, it's too much.
Okay.
A little too far, Renee. Too far, too soon.
Too far, Renee.
Let's pull that back, rein it back into just Justin.
And hey, if this makes it in the live show and you don't know what we're talking about, you missed it. Sorry, it was in the live show. If you don't know what we're talking about, you got to join us live Fridays at 11:15 a.m. CST. But Adam, today I brought you on because we're talking about church website designers, and you were willing to come on and talk to me about just about anything, and so I chose something that I have no idea if you've ever contracted something like that out. So, Adam, first I want to know for our people listening or watching, what church are you at? What kind of work do you do? And do you have any experience with church website designers?
Okay, so bit of a backstory. I'm traveling right now. My wife and I have been traveling since August of 2018, so that puts us about 8 months on the road at the time we're recording this, maybe 9 months-ish, you know? So we're visiting all different churches. So in that time that we've been on the road, we have visited 22 different churches. We got another one lined up to visit on Sunday. So we get to see all different churches, and we're not stationary. We do connect with the church that we were a part of in Fort Myers, Florida before we started traveling, and we kind of watch their live broadcasts and podcasts and all that kind of fun stuff with them. So that's kind of the church we're connected to in a roundabout way. So you might not like that answer, but it's 2019. I can work wherever I want because I got internet. And also the question about church website designers, you probably don't know this about me, Justin, but in my secret life, I have owned a website design business since 2011. So that's kind of outside of my church communications space.
It's kismet. It's kismet that you're here.
It's something. But here we go.
Yeah, this is great. So now that you said it, it does ring a little bit of a memory grape inside my head.
Yeah.
That I've heard that before. I've seen that before. So, Adam, let me ask you to define it for us. What is a website designer?
So one of the things that I would start with distinguishing is the difference between a website designer and a website developer.
Okay. For this example, because I knew we were going to get this. I knew we were going to get this, okay? When I say website designer, I'm using the term interchangeably right now for developer, okay? I'm talking about someone that builds the website for you. Whether they just make the PSD, you can't do anything with that. It's like a blueprint. That's not your house, okay? Or the developer, the person that actually builds it, the contractor. I'm using the terms interchangeably, but because you could be working with a freelancer, you could be working with an agency.
Sure.
I knew we were going to hit that roadblock, but take it away, Adam.
Here we are. Okay. So, what was the question now? Since I sidetracked us,
how would you define a website designer for your church?
Well, someone who designs your website.
Okay. Someone who will create, someone or a business or agency who will create your website for you.
Yeah, right? And I think you have to consider. This might be another rabbit trail. You have to consider somebody who's not just a robot, right? So you're not looking for somebody who is able to take what you want and make a website. You really need somebody with an expertise in what works, who is going to advise you what works, so that your website actually works for you. Right? If you are a website designer yourself, then don't hire a website designer. Just do it yourself. But if you're hiring a website designer, hire them with the intention of receiving their input and tracking with them and allowing them to have input on what's working and what's not. Justin, one of the things that I love from you is your website evaluation, because it's not just a church says, hey, I need a website and we need it to do this. So you're a robot and you build it for them, robot toaster. No, see, if you're not watching the live broadcast, you're not going to get that.
I have no idea what that is.
I'm sorry. Okay. Dave's going to have to edit all of this out.
He's sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm born and raised in Canada, trying to get rid of that accent, but once in a while it shows up. I'm sorry. Okay. But they're not hiring a robot. They're hiring Justin Nava to tell them, hey, here's what works. Here's what I've seen work before. Here's what I would recommend. Here's how you accomplish your goals. So if you're looking for somebody to help you pick colors, for your website, I would just find a volunteer who's good with colors. But if you're actually going to hire, exactly. If you're going to hire a designer, make sure that you're hiring somebody who's got a portfolio, who's got a track record, and who can give actual input into what works for your website.
That's great. And that's exactly kind of what I have here, kind of some talking points. And I have some ideas, but instead of me presenting and asking you what you think, I'm going to ask you, and then I might tack on a couple things, because I think this is really great what we got going on here. So Adam, what are the benefits of hiring an outside web designer or developer?
So I think there's always some benefit to bringing in somebody from the outside. Okay. So, I'm a designer myself, obviously, and I would regularly contract other designers for specific projects, just because there's something about a fresh perspective. If you walk into somebody's house and you've never been there before, you may think to yourself, man, that Kleenex box sitting in the middle of the dining room table, that's kind of in a weird spot. Whereas if you actually live in that house, that Kleenex box in the middle of the dining room table might be something you've been meaning to move for weeks, but you just never got around to it, right? And so in that same terrible analogy, somebody who is part of your church and regularly involved and on the inside may not be able to bring an outside perspective into what you really need to accomplish your goals. There's kind of this, we already do it this way and we know how this works, and an outside perspective is sometimes helpful. So, for instance, I'm rebranding right now, and I actually brought on a designer to design my logo, even though I design logos, because I needed the outside perspective kind of into that space, so I could bounce ideas off that person, and that person could come with a completely blank canvas. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits to hiring an outside web designer.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually my number 2 benefit, is getting the expertise and getting the outside input from someone that they have no baggage. They have no strings attached to your church. They will come in and be totally honest with you. And actually, that's what my church clients love about hiring someone like me or like yourself, is that I can find things about their church. I can find strengths that they never knew they had and that need to be on their website. And I can find weaknesses that they thought were a good thing, but actually could be driving people away. But my number 1 benefit of an external contracted website designer is you're buying your time back. You as a logo guy, you have your ministry, you have your travels, you have your family. Yes, you could sit down and spend a couple hours or 5 or 10 hours designing a logo, or getting that outside expertise and look through. You can also buy that time back, because now you're not spending 2 hours to 10 hours designing that logo and going through revisions. You're spending, maybe 30 minutes to an hour finding that designer, and then you're spending a few minutes writing emails, giving him your prompt, your needs, your desires, things you liked. That stuff takes like 5 or 10 minutes, and then he's doing all the hard work for you. He's doing all the technicality and designing for you. Then he gives it to you, and you spend another few minutes looking at it. How does it make you feel? Does it accomplish what you want? You're buying, and then you go back to the rest of your day. Like, for me, the biggest benefit of a website designer, especially for a church, is you're getting that time back. You're no longer putting aside audio booth priorities. Like, I would love to fix the projector screen, but I can't do that. It's been 3 months, and I have to put it off for another month because now I have to figure out the website. Like, you're getting that time back. That, for me, is number 1.
Yeah, I see that as a benefit. I would push back. I'm not sure that's number 1. And here's the reason why. I would maybe put that number 2, because I do think that's important and I do think that's valuable there. But I do think also that sometimes you're going to hire a website designer that might cost you more than your hourly rate that you're saving. Right? So But the benefit of that is you're hiring an expert in that field, right? So you might say, okay, that guy's going to cost me, this website could take me, let's say 100 hours because it's a nice round number. And that website's going to cost me $5,000. So that's like $50 an hour. Well, I don't make $50 an hour, so maybe I should just do it myself. But there's all kinds of extra benefit to bringing on the expert at that $50 an hour or whatever that going rate is. So yeah, I would definitely see the benefit in buying back that time. But I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, I'm going to buy back that time, but only if that guy charges less than I make, less than I could do it myself, right? Because you're not just buying time, you're buying expertise. So that'd be my 2 cents.
But on the hourly rate, you're really getting double back, because not only are you outsourcing that per hour for the website, you're also getting that time back to fix other things first faster. Right? So you're not only losing that hour designing something, but you're saving that hour because you're now working on something else you would have been doing next month. Right?
Okay. So as long as our listeners, as long as our listeners are willing to use your math right there, then I'm willing to make that number one.
Yeah.
What I'm not willing to do,
what makes more sense to you.
Right. What I'm not willing to do is allow our listeners to say, listen, I would have to pay that guy more than I make per hour, so I'm just going to do it myself. That is not good logic.
Agree to disagree. Let me know which side are you on, because to me it's more valuable if I can just get it done and have someone else to do it, right? Because
I agree with you. No, I totally agree with you.
I think there's one thing that we can agree, and this is my third benefit for hiring a web designer, is you're going to finally have someone in your corner that can help guide you where you need to go. Because so many of us, regardless of the project, we have to tackle it by ourselves. We're going to weird forums that we've never heard of. We're going to forums with ads all over them. We're going on Reddit that is usually used for GIFs and memes. GIFs and memes. And now we find some tech article on how to apparently my buttons need to be red, right? Adam, you know what I'm talking about. Red buttons! Yeah. Everyone's all about the red buttons. Don't get me started. But to have someone in your corner, you're no longer boxing alone trying to figure out, because when you're doing stuff. Let me use the boxing analogy. You're just trying to block hits and trying to make hits. You have no one that's on the outside of the ring saying, hey, did you notice his left side's weaker? Do you notice that he's always blocking your right shots, but he's not blocking them right low? So go for low, go for the kidney. You have someone on that outside that says, here's kind of what you need to do. You have someone on your corner giving you encouragement. And to break the analogy, they're going to get in and they're going to do the fight for you, so you can kind of rest back and kind of guide the fight too. Does that make sense, Adam? I mean, having someone in your corner is a huge benefit.
Yeah, I totally see that benefit. And all around, I think that as much as possible, whatever somebody's sweet spot is, would be great for them to stay in that space and get somebody else whose sweet spot might be website design and bring it on, not just in website design, in all kinds of areas, but specifically website design. I think there's all kinds of benefits to bringing on somebody who already knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. So let's not preach, because again, you and I might be biased because we design websites for churches. So let's talk about the cons. Adam, what are the cons of hiring a website designer, an outside contractor to do your website?
Yeah, well, if you don't do your homework properly, you could get a schmuck. Mm-hmm. Can I say that?
Yes, I will allow it.
Okay. You might get a schmuck. You might get some guy who has no idea what he's really doing. Or she. I mean, you really need to find somebody who has a portfolio, who has a strong base of references. What to do is look at their portfolio links, randomly choose 3 people from their portfolio, send them an email, and say, hey, we're considering hiring Justin. What was the process like? How would you rate him on a scale of 1 to 10? Can you give me some feedback on, how that all went? And, unfortunately, some designers are going to remove somebody from their portfolio because they didn't do them justice and they don't want you contacting them like that. And so, I would say that would be one of the or maybe the biggest. You'll probably have a better one, right? Because this is probably number 2 on your list. But one of the things that you want to be really aware of is that you're vetting your designer before you get into a contract or a commitment kind of situation.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about thousands of dollars, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Now, tell me about, of course, a con for a lot of churches is going to be cost.
Yeah.
Now, I have, I did some research on church website designers, and I found kind of a few blocks of numbers. And
Okay.
Adam, if you're comfortable, you can tell us what you would charge. But here's what I found. You can contract someone maybe for around $1,000 or less if they're doing the straight up design and they're building it in something like Squarespace or Wix. If they're using a separate platform that's already there and all they're doing is putting elements together, you might get away for under $1,000. Does that sound right up for you? Is that a fair price or is that a schmuck?
I think it's a schmuck, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
I think they're charging a fair amount for the time that it actually takes.
Okay.
But what you're not doing is you're not buying expertise, right? If they are your robot, if they are putting things in place that you're telling them to put in place, you're not buying their expertise. And so you're basically throwing away $1,000, right? So here's what I would do if your budget is less than that space, which is totally cool. And what you're going to do is tell your designer exactly what to do and how to place it where. I would take $200, find a volunteer, put them in a nice hotel for the weekend with a Starbucks gift card and tell them exactly what you want and have them go figure out Squarespace. Like, that's what I would do, because you're not hiring the level of expertise for a designer if all you're going to do is tell them what to put in place. So somebody who's willing to charge that for you, they're kind of a schmuck because they're not really bringing much to the table except for executing what you tell them. So
Yeah. They're just hitting the buttons and putting things in the right place. They're putting the puzzle pieces together, but they're not exactly telling you what puzzle you're trying to solve. Does that
right.
sound
So
fair?
like I go to a restaurant, let's say of a famous chef, for instance, just throwing that out there. And then I go in the kitchen and tell them how to make my meal. Okay. Well, if I'm going to stand there and walk them through how to make the meal, I can do that with my 9-year-old. So I shouldn't pay, $200 for a crazy steak dinner at some famous chef's restaurant if I'm going to tell the guy how to make the steak, and I could tell my 9-year-old how to do it for just the cost of the steak, right? So
Absolutely.
Again, it's a terrible analogy. However,
I thought it was really
imagine
good.
that comes okay. It's a great analogy. Edit that out, Dave. It was a great analogy. However, working backwards, compare that to what it might be like to be working on your website. If you have a $25 budget, don't try and go out for a $200 steak. I mean,
It is what it is.
Find another way around that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now another subsection I found, and we're kind of getting into how much things should cost, but I think these are all cons that you should be aware of. Okay, so yes, the main con is you're going to spend money, but the question is how big of a con is it? So next, I found church website specific designers that have either their own platform or they're designing in what's called a hosted WordPress site, where it's basically WordPress, but they're building it out for you. These can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. Now, it does look custom made, being that they've taken all the different plugins that WordPress has to offer. They've taken the ones that are stable and they built it out for you, and they put it in a manner that is both, they know how it converts web visitors into church visitors, and they've taken the tools that way you don't have to go research all that stuff. 1,000 to 3,000. Adam, what is your opinion? Is that a con? Is that a schmuck? Is that kind of where you should start looking?
Yeah, that's kind of on par when you're going to start considering your website to be an investment. Okay, so your website really needs to bring in new visitors. And so what you are doing is you're investing money at that point in time. The one question you need to ask your designer at that point is, how are you going to solve our problem? So either you know what your problem is, or you're going to ask your designer to help you figure out what your problem is. So your problem might be we're not getting enough website visitors. Or your problem might be we're getting plenty of website visitors, but none of them are coming to our church. Or your problem might be we're getting lots of website visitors and lots of them are coming to our church, but our problem is our website misrepresents us. So when they get here, the experience is nothing like what they think it is. So they don't come back. So the problem is that people who see our website get a false impression, and when they visit us, they don't come back. So you need to really figure out, and those are just, 3 examples. There's literally dozens of problems that your website could be solving. But that's the point in time where, again, you're not talking to a designer necessarily about colors and layout as much as you are getting their expertise on how are they going to solve your problem.
Absolutely. And then the last one I found, and there was actually more than I thought there would be in my research. These are the designers, developers, the agencies that will cost you from anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. Now, before you go crazy, let me tell you, my church I was at last, we spent $40,000 on a digital sign. Okay, that makes a $10,000 website. Your online signage, that makes it look like peanuts. But I did find those $3,000 to $10,000, and these, you are getting a fully customized site. This is built like they have a blank notepad and they start coding it out. They may have some elements that they're going to swipe from other churches that they've seen work, and you get that. You're also going to get things like a discovery session. You're going to get meetings throughout. You're going to spend maybe an hour or two meeting with them to really get them aware of what your church is, who you're trying to reach, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And then you're going to have some revisions down the road as well. Adam, $3,000 to $10,000. Is that a con? Is that a schmuck? Is that overcharging? Are those scams? What do you think?
No, that's the pocket where a lot of churches should be. So generally speaking, and this is a real generalization. So, use this as a guidepost, but don't necessarily, hang your hat on this and say, Adam said this. But generally speaking, take your weekend attendance and multiply it by $10 a person. So if you have 300 people in your church, then be planning to spend around $3,000 for your website. If you have 1,000 people in your church, be looking at about $10,000 for your website. If you have a church of 20,000 people, then it's really actually reasonable with the number of programs and ins and outs and probably campuses and locations and service times and all those bits and pieces of the puzzle. You could be looking at a couple $100,000 for a proper website if your church is in the neighborhood of a $20,000 member church. So, that's just a general guidepost, but it's not unreasonable for a church of 300, 400 people to be paying $3,000 or $4,000 for their website and going up from there. Again, just like you said, what you're really paying for is strategy and context and getting those end results. But what I would also push back on the thought that your designer is starting from a blank notepad. Like, I think there is still value if somebody can find the template that they can customize to the point where it looks unique to you but functions. Then you're actually spending your budget dollars more on strategy than spending your budget dollars on the guy writing the code, right? So, for instance, if I can give you a business card, and when you hand out that business card, more people show up to your church, then I want to know, does it matter to you that I grew the tree and pulped the paper and pressed it and put it all together and put it into the printing press and it costs you 6 times as much? Or does it matter to you that the business card works? Right? So even if I can get you 200 business cards for $35. So at the end of the day, let's not be obsessed with the thought that it has to be hand-coded in order to be valuable. Sorry, I shouldn't use obsessed. That's a little bit of a dramatization. Let's not be consumed with the thought that it has to be hand-coded in order to be valuable. I think what you really need is somebody who can help you answer that big question. And generally speaking, $10 per weekend attender is roughly what I would recommend on a website.
Absolutely. Now, I was also exaggerating there. I know they're not starting with a blank canvas, right?
Sure.
I do know some commercial designers that do freelance work for Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all that stuff, and they do start with a blank Photoshop template. Okay,
sure.
There are some guys that do that, and yeah, they're getting paid $50,000. So that was an exaggeration, but I mean, really, they are not starting with, oh, this Squarespace template looks good, let me manipulate some objects. No, they are really starting with something custom for you, right? When you get up into that price scale. So To wrap it up, let me ask you, Adam, let me ask you this. We kind of already touched about it here, but just for the official time mark here, so people can jump to this time spot if they just really want this information. What do you look for in a web developer, web agency, web designer? What do you look for when you're looking to contract that stuff out?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would look for is a price point that's around that $10 per weekend attender, right? So if you say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a website, and they reply back, okay, it's 10 grand, when do we start? That person is not the strategy person you're looking for.
No.
Right? They need to be asking a lot of questions before you get to a price point. If you're looking for like, hey, how much does a website cost? Then it's kind of like saying, hey, how much does a hamburger cost? Well, I mean, it really depends. So, if you're going to In-N-Out Burger, then it's only a couple bucks. If you're going to go sit down at Five Guys, then it's, $18 to get, the proper burger with bacon and cheese and all that extra stuff, right? So the question needs to be more of a conversation. And during that conversation, you're going to find out, is this person really going to be a fit for our team? And you might have to have 2 or 3 pretty significant conversations with major agencies in order to find that person who's a real fit for your team. Now, if you find somebody on the first conversation, like you have a conversation with Justin and he is like a perfect fit for your team, stop looking. Don't confuse the issue. Just go with it. And, make sure that you get recommendations and check out their portfolio. And the other thing you want to ask is, how have you solved this problem for somebody else? And if they give you like a fluff the bunny answer, which is what I would call something that's like, you take a bunny and then you fluff it so it looks a lot bigger than it actually is, not good news, right? It would be better for somebody to say, I've never solved this problem before, but here's my strategy on how I think we could solve it, than to say, oh yeah, I've done that before, kind of, sort of, in a roundabout way, right? So, and even best would be if somebody says, I have solved that problem before. Here's the link to that website. Here's how we solve that problem. And here's the contact email address so that you can ask that person what the process was like dealing with me. So, those are the things I would start to look for in a designer. Look for somebody who's really wanting to start a conversation.
Do you think it should be a church website developer agency specific, or can any like local web design agency take on your church?
So a website's a website, right? And similar problems, excuse me, sorry, I didn't mute my mic. There we go. Similar problems that you're trying to solve, other businesses are also trying to solve, right? They're trying to get more people through the door. They're trying to get more visitors to their website. They're trying to rank higher in Google, and by the way, that's not a problem. Ranking higher in Google is not the problem. Getting traffic to your website might be the problem. Google might be a way to get there. I'm just throwing that out, right? So,
Caught it.
Okay, side note, rabbit trail. If you rank first place in Google, but still nobody visits your website, you haven't solved a problem. So It's not about Google.
Yep.
I mean, Google's important and it is a factor, but it's not about Google. So I think a local design agency can help with some of those similar problems. Now, if you're talking about something that might be specific to church space, like we have people who show up to our website, they plan their visit, and then they come through the door, and then they never come back. And we see this over and over and over and over and over. Okay, well, then maybe it's not going to be, the guy who designs restaurant websites locally that can help you solve that problem. Maybe it's some guy who really understands the church space that can help you solve that problem. So my recommendation would be, have the conversations, figure out what problem you're trying to solve, and find the best designer who's going to help you solve that problem.
Awesome. And some places, they just make your website. I find this often with WordPress developers. They make a website, they give it to you, and they say, have fun. Good luck. Right? $150 a month if you want us to continue helping you. Is this something that is normal? Is this something do you prefer the agency model where they stay with you in long term? Or do you prefer the developer model where they just kind of make your site and then say, here you go, see you later?
Okay, if you're hiring an expert and they know what they're doing, then you want to continue to have them involved in the process. So it's, generally speaking, it's going to be a lot less expensive to have somebody on a monthly retainer than it is to call them once in a while and need an hour of changes here and there. Okay. In the long run, it's going to be less expensive, right? Because, you're saying, I'm going to guarantee you this money every single month, compared to whenever I need you, I'm going to call and make a change. Okay. So imagine this, that you've just paid, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000 for your website. You have a church of 450 maybe people, 500 people. You just paid $5,000 for your website, and 3 months from now, it's going to cost you more money. So the challenge could be at that point that now you have to get budget approval in order to spend the money, in order to make a necessary change on your website. It's a lot easier to say, okay, we want regular service to the website. It's necessary. We could talk about some technical things like hosting and domain registration, and those things are going to cost you every month anyway. So there is going to be a monthly or a yearly recurring fee with your website. But it is best to say to that, agency, hey, we want to make sure that this is not just a one-time, set it and forget it kind of thing, because your website has to continue to change. You're going to have new events. You're going to have an Easter promotion. You're going to want a page for, your live broadcast when you start that up, or, you're going to try a different plugin in order to get your event calendar to sync with Google, or whatever the case might be. Your website is not going to be stationary. It's like a piece of software. Imagine your iPhone needs an update, and then 3 days later, it needs another update. So your website's the same. It needs regular updates. So I'm a big proponent of getting into a service contract with somebody who you get along great with, and considering that contractor as a utility, just like your electrical bill, just like your phone bill, just like your water bill at your church. This contract is part of that. It is a utility that your church has to pay in order to stay relevant.
Absolutely, I would agree with you. The other thing that I think is a necessary thing for someone to continue on with you is you really want someone to be your partner in ministry, right? You want them to basically be that guy that's should be working in your church, but maybe you can't afford to pay him. Someone that will manage the hosting, someone that will take care of the uptime if you have an issue when your site goes out and you don't know what to do or who to call or how to restore a backup. I think you want someone to do that, even if they just manage the hosting. Maybe they don't make edits. Maybe you make your own edits. But It's a lot easier because so often I get guys that are like, I got an email from a guy, not a church client, but he was like, I said, hey, your website has a couple issues. Can I help you out with it? And he said, oh, woe is me. I don't know the login for my domain. I don't know how to update it. I don't have access to the server. I don't know what's going on. I set it up years ago and I have someone else made it and just gave it to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, you need to have that support. You need to have that contact that can fix those things for you and be your partner. And instead of paying someone $30,000 a year plus benefits, which is still lowballing an IT or a creative guy, you can pay someone, $100 a month to keep them on retainer, or more if they're going to do other things for you. So I think, again, one of the benefits of having a designer for you, an outside contractor, is someone's in your corner. And I think you want to keep them in your corner and helping you. And they can also help you out with stuff like they can provide monthly backups, weekly backups. They can provide monthly analytics. Once a month, they might say, hey, let's fix this one thing to improve your bounce rate, right? Because they're not going to where we want them to. They'll be able to give you those eyeballs that maybe you just don't see or, again, have time to take care of yourself. Adam, do you want to make a pitch for your web design services? If someone's like, man, I need that. I need that expertise. I need someone in my corner. I need to buy some of my time back so I can start focusing on other guest ministries. Are you comfortable making a pitch?
Yeah, for sure.
Go for it.
So, if your website is not doing what you need it to do, if it's not solving the problem that you need it to solve, if you're not seeing the results that you want to see from your website to get an incredible return on investment, then you need to contact Justin Nava and get your church website redesigned. He will solve that issue.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
He will. Yeah. I would totally go with Justin if I didn't design websites. And actually, you know what? We're actually, okay, here's my real pitch. I'm actually moving to a marketing agency model where we're helping churches get clear on their message across all of their communications, not just websites. And so, that kind of comes with a price tag that doesn't fit every church model. And so we're really looking for, clients who want the entire package done. And I get that that's just not realistic and feasible for a lot of churches. So I would totally call Justin. And if that's what you need for your website, I would totally call Justin.
Awesome. Now let me give a pitch here. I'm going to come to me, Adam. I am full screen here because this is very important. If you decide that you do not need a web designer because A, you can't afford it, B, you can do it yourself. You follow Adam's mindset of, you can do it yourself in less hours than it would take to pay someone, that whole hourly thing. Let me encourage you to still make an investment, but it's a much smaller investment. By the time this goes, this is published, so it's not right now while I'm recording it live, but by the time this goes published, Church Training Academy's first publicly available course will be launched. It's called the Definitive Church Website Formula. This is where I'm going to walk you through setting up your site and answering those things of what should a website really accomplish? What problems might you have right now that can be fixed by simple reorganizing the layout, making it much more visitor-friendly, more web-friendly, more phone-friendly? And what kind of words do you want to use on your website that compel a visit? Because a website is not all about learning about you. Your church website is all about a visitor learning about what you can do for them. So you really want to speak to someone. So if you do want to do it yourself, if you want just some guidance, an instruction manual on what a proper church website needs, and maybe you already have one that needs design or you just need to start from scratch, go to churchwebsiteformula.com. Again, that's churchwebsiteformula.com. When this publishes, you'll be able to get our first publicly available course, training course, instruction manual, whatever you want to call it, and get the answers on exactly what your church website needs to have, and I will walk along with you building it out for you. And the great thing is this is platform independent. Whether you do have a Squarespace website, a Wix website, a WordPress website, any of those website platforms out there, If you have a website, you can do this because this training is not technical. This training is all about strategy. It's all about methods, and it's all about principles that every church website needs to generate more visitors through their website. Because again, if you rank number 1 on Google, like Adam said, but you're still not getting more visitors, it's because your website's terrible. Your location doesn't matter if you have bad service. Okay, the best restaurant location doesn't mean a thing if your hamburgers are terrible. All right, you need to have your product down. You need to have your communications down. And that's what the church website formula, the definitive church website formula is going to teach you. So at the end of this, you need a designer? Talk to Adam. You want to do it yourself? churchwebsiteformula.com. Adam, thank you so much for being here. You're shaking your head. What's going on, man? Where can people find you?
They can check out my blog, All Things Church Communications, at adammclaughlin.net. Kind of like the silver medal of domain registration, I should say. And if they want to find out more about my agency, it's freshideamarketing.com, which will be live probably sometime this year.
Do you have a landing page up to give people a notice when it does go live?
So it's actually freshideawebsites.com. is my website design agency, but as I said, I'm rebranding. We're pivoting to freshideamarketing.com. So anyway, you can sort me out one of there, or just hit me up on Instagram or Twitter or whatevs. I mean, yes. AdamMclaughlin.net, let's be clear on that one, is a place where you can find out more about all things church communications. And if you need a website designer, then call Justin.
Okay, well, we'll leave it with that. Adam, I appreciate you. And let me do one more pitch here. Follow Adam on Instagram because he has some of the most hilarious, compelling, and honest stories, Instagram stories, I've ever heard. Your whole rant on, this was a while ago, LaCroix, the LaCroix water, and the hints of flavor that they have was, my wife kicked me out of bed because I was laughing so hard. So
LaCroix, it's like the strawberry LaCroix is like they squeezed a strawberry in the factory next to the LaCroix factory. Like, it is terrible. They really should not assign a flavor.
No, see, it's more like the guy who poured the water in the can. He had eaten strawberries for breakfast and he had some residue on his fingers, and then he just kind of stirred it up with his fingers and was like, that's That's strawberry. That's good enough.
Yeah, when Mclaughlin wants to introduce a new flavor, all they have to do is change the label.
Exactly. Thank you, Adam, for being here. We'll have links to everything down below that we mentioned. Thank you guys for watching. Now take what you've learned and go change lives.